Okay, welcome everyone. As we put Barry on mute and have Olam Haba, we welcome everyone back as we are doing our Motzei Shabbos marathon. And the Motzei Shabbos marathon in Bava Metzia is really, I'll tell you, it's incredible star. If the Olam would be able to have a picture of how much reward they get in the next world, reward in this world, right? Because Talmud Torah is one of the things that Oichlun Peroiseyem ba'olam hazeh. We have the dividends in this world, va'keren kayemes olam haba, and the principle remains for olam haba. It's from the hardest Gemaras. So bravo to all of you. So now we are holding ahead, really ahead. We're holding by Rav Nachman and Rav Chisda, which is 10 lines from the 10 lines from Daf Yud, 10 from Daf 10 lines from the top. You know, Rabbi said that Yud is just a great letter. Yud. First of all, we're called Yidden because all our national names start with the Yud. Yisrael, Yeshurun, Yehudim. That's why we're called Yidden. But we're also called Yidden. The Gemara says in Masechtas Menachos that Hashem created Olam Haba with the Yud. And that's why we're called Yidden, because Kol Yisrael Yesh Lem Chelek Olam Haba. The Gemara says that it was created with a Yud because very few people, it's the smallest letter, and very few people get to the next world. And that's what's so special about coming and learning at the beginning of the week. We are cementing our chelik in the next world. And I say cementing because it says in the Medrash, Aveira mechaba mitzvah. An Aveira could extinguish mitzvahs, but ein Aveira mechaba Torah. Aveira does not extinguish Torah. Torah is nitzchias. So we are, of course, we're doing the level. In the 6th parak of Pirkei Avos, it says, Rameir Aimer, Kol ha'loimed Torah lishma, Zeicha l'dvarim harba. So we're learning Torah lishma. We're learning Torah to be mekayim the mitzvah, v'dibar tabam, la'asais nachas ruach liyotzreinu. So although Barry had plenty of other things to do tonight, plenty, he's a very busy guy. You know, his phone lights up like you should see. I don't want to say what kind of a tree. That's how his phone lights up. But he's here listening to us as we welcome in Philippe. Philippe has made Philippe has made a rare appearance here on Motzei Shabbos. It's good to have you, Philippe. Better late than never. I tell that to my friends. I didn't tell that to Marshall. But Philippe has never complained that I was keeping anybody waiting. The
rabbi is most accommodating. Let's put it that way.
Now, the 10 lines from the top of Daf Yud Amud Aleph. Rav Nachman v'Rav Chisda d'Imrei Travayu. Rav Nachman v'Rav Chisda say, "Amagvia Metzia lechaveiroi lo kana chaveiroi." When you pick up something, when I see something, and I say that it should be for Berish doesn't get it. My timer is what I've been telling you all over the place, because it's chav la'acherim. So, for example, let's say that Barry owes money to Marshall, and I grab it out of Barry's hand for Marshall, but in the meantime, Barry also owes money to Dr. Block and Aaron Swade and Mel, so I don't acquire it for Marshall. Because my timer, that's grabbing it for a creditor when he owes people all over the world. And you're not kinda. That doesn't work. Like Hana. So the Gemara says, Eisvei, Rav asks Rav Nachman, Eisvei, Rav Nachman, Metzias poyel atzmai. If, let's say, Marshall is working for me, right? I have him collecting the dung in the backyard, right? So Marshall,
It belongs to me. I'm not giving it.
Marshall is collecting, and he finds a wallet. He could keep it. However, that's only if I told him, Nakesh imi hayayim, I only tell him weed for me today, or adar imi hayayim, a hole for me. So I only hired him to do a specific job. But if I pay him to do whatever I want, and believe me, I have plans for him, right? So then, mitziyase shel balabayis, because that's he's hired to me today, and therefore, what he finds is mine. Says, but why? Somebody should turn off his phone.
Whose yard are we working in there? We're working in your yard?
It's my yard, but it's not a chutzner that's mishtameres. It's not a chutzner that's mishtameres. So says the Gemara, so you see that if he's working for me, he could pick it up and be zeichen it for me. Amalei, no, there it's different. Since I'm paying him, he's an extension of my yad. He's an extension of my hand. So it's like I'm picking it up for myself. Amalei shani payil, a worker is different. The yoda kiyad balabayis dami. His hand is an extension of my hand. Says the Gemara, but wait a second. Rav says that a worker is allowed to back out even at half the day. The marshal could say, I'm out of here. I just sick and tired of all this dunging around. Right? He says, I'm out of here. Says my marshal could do that, but as long as he doesn't do that, he's an extension of my hand. So if he didn't back out, now Marshall was smart, and he saw this gleaming new wallet, he should have backed out and then picked it up. But if he didn't do that, the wallet's mine. And ki haderbe, and when he backs out, it's not that until then he's not my yad. Taimachrinu, that we give rights to a Jew to terminate service at any time. Because it says we're only an eved to one person. Dichsiv ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim. To me, the b'nei Yisrael are servants. Avodayim, they're my servants. Not servants to servants. One last halacha before we learn a new Mishnah. Hamagvia metzia lechaveiroi kana chaveir. That the halacha is that if I pick up something for Berish, Berish requires it. If you learn that our Mishnah is talking about where I picked it up initially for Shelley, then why am I allowed to change my mind and keep it for myself? If I picked it up for Shelley, I'm agvia metzila chavera kana chavera. So how could I change my mind and pick it up? So now you have to see, you see, you have to look at the language that Shelley said. I always tell you, Shelley, watch the language. Watch the language. Shelley said, give it to me. He didn't say, be zoiche in it for me. If he would say, be zoiche in it for me, then I wouldn't be able to back out. But he said, give it to me. So it's only his when I give it to him. I could change my mind and not give it to him. I don't have to listen to him. He said, give it to me. If he said zaka for me, and I was zoichin it, since I'm agvir metzila chaveiroi, kana chaveiroi, I wouldn't be able to keep it. But he didn't say be zoichin it to me. He said, give it to me. I give it to me. I decide to not give it to him. I don't have to listen to him. Now, Barish, would you mind seeing if there's something cold? If there's cold water, good. If not, cold seltzer.
Me and my big mouth.
Shelley, I already started, believe it or not, in my head, I already started preparing the next article. Is one good for you tomorrow?
One will be fine.
So let's fix that at 1.
Right?
All right, but not later. Let's fix it at 1. Because I might have an appointment at 2.
Rabbi, if he sees the wallet, he has the dot already that it's an evader, right? Someone lost it.
Yeah, and seeing doesn't acquire anything.
Only picking with his hand.
Right.
But he has the dot, so it's a little duplicitous that he could have the knowledge that he found something valuable and yet not actually acquire it.
No, you can't acquire. You have to make a Ma'aser Kinyan. If you see $1 million,
Physical.
yeah, you have to make a
But
Ma'aser
the
Kinyan.
extension of his hand is only as good. That is the extension of the owner's hand.
Well, over here, I'm not working for Shelley, so I'm not an extension of his hand.
No, but when Marshall was working for you, when he found it in the backyard,
When
he
he,
had to physically take it.
that's correct.
Ah.
Yeah. Now, says the Mishnah. Now, here's another case. We have to find somebody who's impulsive and not aware. Okay, let's just pick somebody out of that. Marshall. It was between Marshall.
Hey, I won.
It was between Marshall and Barry, and I went with Marshall.
How come Shelley never gets into this?
Now, the difference between you and Shelley is like the difference between you and the Titanic. Now, you asked
Shelley sunk.
now, Bava Metzia, Marshall saw a lost article. He saw this gleaming wallet. He could tell it's bulging. V'nofel aleh. And he fell on top of it. I mean, he got so excited, he was salivating. And he fell on top of it. And then Uba Achar and Barry came, v'hirzik ba, and put his hand under Marshall's stomach and grasped it. Zeh she'hirzik ba zacha ba. Barry gets it. So now, there's a big problem over here. Because we know in Shas we have a rule that a person's 4 amas, that which is within your 4 amas, within your 4 cubits, about 8 feet, you acquire what's in your 4 amas. So forget about falling on top of it. Once Marshall walks there, it's in his 4 amas. He should acquire it because it's in his 4 amas. So, ask the Gemara. It's a very big kasha. Reish Lakish says in the name of Abba Kohen Bardala, the 4 amas of a person acquire for him in all areas. My time, because we don't want Marshall and Barry fighting like cats and dogs. We don't want to have people pushing and shoving. My time, Tekinu Rabban, the Rabbanan made this to loy osil in suye, that they shouldn't come to fight. So Amar Abaya, Moisiv Rab Chia bar Yosef Peya. Rab Chia bar Yosef asked on this a question from a case of Peya, while Amar Rava Moisiv Rab Yaakov bar Idi Nezikin. The question from Nezikin is going to be from our Mishnah. But first, the Gemara asks on this rule from the din of Peya. Amar Abaya Moisiv Rab Chia bar Yosef Peya. Here, Marshall is walking through a field, and he sees particularly juicy crops on the corner of the field. So Natal mixes Peya. He takes a portion of the Peya, v'zorak al ashar, and he throws it on the rest. Now actually, the part that he picked up, he should have acquired. But since he tried to acquire the rest by throwing it, and of course you can't do that, we penalize him and he doesn't get anything. So, not on mixas pay of Zorak al Ashar, ein lo baklum. Nafalay aleha, if he falls on top of it. Peiris talisa aleha, he takes off his coat and he spreads it on it. Ma'avirin oisai heimenu, we remove him from the premises. He doesn't get anything. V'chein ba'im shikra, and also if he sees a forgotten sheave, which we know a forgotten sheave your ani is allowed to take, so he throws his coat over it, we remove him. But if if we say his 4 cubits acquire it, then niknu le arba amas didei, let him acquire it as soon as it comes within his 4 amas. Says the Gemara, here it's talking about where he doesn't say I acquire it. Says the Gemara, he doesn't have to say that. If the Rabbanan made the enactment that it's automatic, so what, he didn't say it. So says the Gemara, you know what he did? He tipped his hand. Since he fell on it, since he covered it with his coat, he's revealing that he doesn't want to acquire it with his dalamas. Kaven the nafel goli daite the nefila nechel. He wants to acquire it by falling on it. The nefila nechel the nikne, but arba amas loy nechel the nikne. He doesn't want to acquire it with the rule of arba amas. That's one answer. As we turn, believe it or not, to Yuram at Beis, unbelievable. We're at exactly 1 hour, and we're already finished 3/4 of the evening's work. It's really, really absolutely amazing.
Amen.
It's a happy Chodesh when we have Marshall here and Barry here. It's, Barry, you have already much more than a chazaka. You're back. Barry is officially back.
And Rabbi Weiss, we also had the camels.
Right. And you didn't start up with them. Mamish, you're a reformed man. Mamish, a reformed man.
But Marshall is still with the dung.
Oh, that's a bunch of crud.
Isn't this halacha by Peah? Isn't it?
One second. Rapapa Amar. Rapapa says, you don't understand. Where did Dalal Amas acquire? Dalal Amas acquire Kitakin Rabban Arba Amas Ba'alma. But here, Marshall is in somebody's field on private premises. Besada de Balabai is like Takinu Rabbanan. Va'afal gav de Zachalei Rachmana Begava. Even though the Torah says what's in your 4 amas you get. Ki Zachalei Rachmana La Lucheba. Excuse me, and even though you'll argue, but Marshall is allowed to come in my field to get the pay. Not fully. They gave him limited rights to come in my field and to take the pay. That the Dal Amas should be his, the Torah didn't grant that to him. What do you want to ask me?
I thought this halacha, it's like when he covers it, it's halacha, it's a knas to the ani that he's hogging for everybody.
No, he didn't. Covering it is not a Maisa Kinyan.
I understand, but we don't let him get even the stuff that he had because it's a knas. Even the stuff that he had.
The question is, why doesn't he get it beforehand? There's no reason to cancel him. It's his.
All right. Okay.
Why doesn't he get it before he did the action?
Well, he took some payah, and then that payah was his.
Okay, you want to invent more knosses. So if you're giving an answer, you could say what you're saying, but you're asking a question. So I'm giving you an answer to your question. Now, says the Gemara, Amar Rava. Remember, we said this was the question that Abaya asked from Peah. Now Rava asks a similar question from our Mishnah. Amar Rava, Moisev Reb Yaakov bar Idi Nezikin. He asks a kasha from Nezikin. Ra'as Hamatzia, Marshall sees the bulging wallet, v'nafal aleha, and he falls on top of it. Uba achar v'hichzik ba, and Barry sticks his hand under his stomach and takes the wallet. Zeh shehichzik ba zachaba. Barry gets it, but why? It was in Marshall's Dalet Amos. If you say that the 4 Amos acquires wherever he is, as we welcome in Mo Kushner and said, "Moiridik to have you this Motzei Shabbos." Niknu le Arba Amos today. Let his 4 Amos acquire the wallet even before he lies down. So the Gemara tries the same answer. He didn't say, "I want to acquire it." So the Gemara says it's a takana automatically. If the Rabbanan made a takana ki lo yamar ma'havi, so what, he didn't say it? Gave him the nafal. So the Gemara answers first the answer we did before. That Marshall tipped his hand. Since he fell on it, he's being megala that he doesn't want to acquire it with his dalamas. He wants to acquire it by falling on it. Unfortunately for Marshall, he doesn't know that by falling on it, that's not a ma'aser kinyan. Rav Sheshes says a different answer. Rav Sheshes says we're not granted Dalet Amos. We're not granted this kinyan of Dalet Amos in a Reshus Rabbin, in a public domain. Rav Sheshes amakita kin Rabbanim besimta, in a side street. Delay doke Rabbin. You don't have people walking, and you'd have to become a geometry specialist to figure out whose Dalet Amos was closer. Reshus Rabbin, the Kadoke Rabbin, in the Reshus Rabbin where people are walking and there's overlapping Dalet Amos in every square, like Tekiru Rabbana. Says the Gemara, but it says B'chol Mokam. Va B'chol Mokam Kamer. Says the Gemara, Kol Mokam. Kol Mokam means Kol Mokam just comes la'asiyei tzidei Reshus Rabbin, the sides of Reshus Rabbin, but not the Reshus Rabbin itself. Now, the Gemara takes us into another subject. By the way, the Gemara is not hard now for the rest of the night. It's really, really amazing. Excuse me. V'amar Reish Lakish misham Abba Koyin Bardala. Reish Lakish says in the name of Abba Koyin Bardala, Ketana ein lo chotzer. A young girl, a 10-year-old girl, cannot acquire something if it's in her courtyard. Ve'ein lo arba amos, and she's not entitled to what's in her 4 amos. Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Yani aymer yesh lo chotzer. She does have chotzer. V'yesh lo arba amos, and she does have what's in her arba amos. So the Gemara says, "B'may kamiflagi." So the Gemara wants to know the lumdus of why your courtyard acquires for you. Mar savar chotzer mishum yoda is rabbi. A chotzer is an extension of your hand. So therefore a minor girl has a hand. Ki eichi disla yad, chotzer nami isla. Umar savar chotzer mishum shlichus. It's your agent. Now a ketana cannot make an agent. Chotzer mishum shlichus is rabbi. The ki eichi de shlichus lesla. Just like she doesn't have an agent, Chotzer nami lesla. Says, well, I don't understand. Everybody holds that Chotzer. Is there anybody that holds that Chotzer is your agent? Mi could mandi yama Chotzer mishum shlichus is rabbi? That Chotzer acts as an agent? But Tanya, we learned by theft that the din by theft is that you're chayiv kefil no matter where the theft is found. How do we know that if it's found on your roof, on your courtyard, or in your enclosure, Talmud Leimer himatzei tzimatzei, wherever it's found, mikol makom. So that means if the theft is found in your courtyard, you have to pay kefil. But wait a second. If courtyard works mitam shlichus, we have a klal ein shliach ledvar aveira. V'yisok dait chotz mishum shlichus is rabbi. Im kematzinu shliach ledvar aveira. If you're chayiv, that means there's a shliach for aveira. The kaim alon ein shliach ledvar aveira. So what's the simple answer to this? It's such an obvious answer. Where do we say ein shliach ledvar aveira? That's where I tell Barry to kill somebody. So there, I'm not chayiv if Barry kills somebody. Watch out. Because ain't shliach ledvar aveira, because divrei harav, divrei hatalmud, divrei mishayim. Who should Barry listen to me? Should he listen to me or should he listen to Hashem? But over here, the courtyard is not an animate object. It's not listening to someone. So there is a shliach ledvar aveira. Amar Ravina heicha amrin dein shliach ledvar aveira heicha the shliach bar chiyuvu. That's where the shliach is somebody that's liable for a crime. Aval b'chatzar de la bar chiyuvu, where a chatzar is not liable to a crime, michayiv sholchai, then it is my agent, if you learn that chatzar is mitam shlichus, and I'm going to be chayiv. So now the Gemara asks an interesting thing. If I tell a woman or a servant, Su'u ganvuli, servant over here means an Eved Kanani, steal for me. Now the din is if a woman or an Eved steals, they're putter from paying. Because a woman doesn't have money, because Kol Masha Kana Isha Kana Bala, and an Eved doesn't have money, because Kol Masha Kana Eved Kana Rabbi. So the Gemara assumes they're not a bar chiyuva. So if I tell a woman or a servant to steal from me, the labnei chiyuvunenu hachanami de mechayiv sholchan, I'll be chayiv. So the Gemara says it's not true what you just said. A woman and a servant are chayiv, just they don't have money to pay. But if they get emancipated or she gets divorced, she does have to pay. So they are a bar chiyuva, and that's why they're not a shliach. I'm not chayiv because they're ain't shlich ledvar aveira. Amrit isha ve'evet b'nei chiyuvaninu. Just v'ashtem yeles l'shlume. The only reason why they don't pay is because they don't have any money. But if she gets divorced or he gets emancipated, he has money, he has to pay. Did not niskarsha yisha, if the woman gets divorced and shtachar abim chayav l'shalim. Rav Sama takes the Talmudic surgical scalpel and makes a little difference. Rav Samra heicha amrinon ein shlich ledvar aveira. Where do we say that there's no shlich ledvar aveira? Heicha di iboy ovid v'iboy loy ovid. Where there is a choice to listen or not. But by the chatzah there's no choice. Aval chatzah the bal korchei moiseba, where the thief puts it in the courtyard against its will, there we say that it works as a shliach. Mechayiv sholchai. So the Gemara says, what's the difference if it's not a choice or if it's not a bar chiyuva? My beinayu. Ikemenayu kayin to amalei Yisrael. If a kayin says to Yisrael, say v'kadish li isha grusha. A kayin says to Yisrael, be mekadosh for me a divorcee. Now for the kayin that's an aveira, because he's not allowed to marry a divorcee. But a Yisrael doesn't have a din of, he's allowed to marry a divorcee. So for him it's not an aveira. So if you say that he has to be a bar chiyuva here, he's not a bar chiyuva. Because Yisrael is allowed to marry a divorcee. So then he could be a shliach for the kayin. But if you say it's because he doesn't have a choice, here he does have a choice. He doesn't have to listen. He doesn't have to do what's wrong. Inami, or if a man tells a woman to cut off his payas. Now a woman doesn't have a chiyuv of payas. Hinami ishta amalei isha akfili cut. Cut the payas of this child. So a man is not allowed to cut the payas of a child. But he tells the woman to do it. So if you say that she has a choice, so then it would be ein shlich l'dvar aveira. If you say that she has to be bar chiyuva, here she's not a bar chiyuva. Says the Gemara, lachlish nudama kol echadi boy avidi boy loy avid loy mechayiv sholchay. The man will not be chayiv. The kohen won't be chayiv for the kedushin of the divorcee because the person didn't have to listen, and he wouldn't be chayiv if the woman cuts the payas. Achinami boy avidi boy loy avid loy mechayiv sholchay. But lachlish nudama amrit kol echad the shliach la bar chiyuva. Where the shliach is not a bar chiyuva, then the principal is chayiv. Mechayiv sholchay. So here, the Yisrael is not a bar chiyuva because he's allowed to marry a divorcee, and the woman is not a bar chiyuva because she could cut off payas. Hani nami kevin the la beinei chiyuva ninu, then mechayiv sholchay. Then the principal would be chayiv. Okay, we're going to stop here now. Now wait before you even think of leaving, even if you're anti-Mishnah Yomis and you leave early, don't leave yet. Because we have to let you know that, and this is how Aaron got mixed up tonight. This week, Shir is at 7:45, right? From Sunday through Thursday, Shir is 7:45 because we changed the clock, and Mincha Marv here in Agudas Yisrael, Beis Zev of Fairways is at 7:15. So Shir for the coming week is at 7:45, and we hope you'll join us. And now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis.